When the truth came out, what was meant to be a simple family dinner turned into a devastating revelation. Lucas stared at Sophia, unable to believe what he had just discovered. She knew that moment would change everything, but she could never have predicted the consequences that were about to unfold. Sofia Marquez looked at her reflection in the small bathroom mirror of the bus station. Her hair, usually styled to perfection and treated with the best products money could buy, was now tied back in a simple, almost messy bun. The clothes she wore, faded jeans and a plain cotton shirt, were a far cry from the elegant dresses and designer accessories she was used to. Sophia knew this was the only way to ensure no one would recognize her. At that moment, she was no longer the billionaire heiress of the Marquez conglomerate, but a simple maid, newly hired to work at the Azevedo household. The decision to pose as a maid had not been made lightly. In recent months, Sophia had found herself falling deeper in love with Lucas Azevedo. The man she believed was different from all the others she had known. Lucas, with his humility and dedication as a doctor at a community clinic, had never shown any interest in her wealth, perhaps because he had no idea who she truly was. It was this purity that won Sophia over, but at the same time, a growing fear gnawed at her heart. What if Lucas's family was like so many others she had met, obsessed with status and money? How would they treat a woman who seemingly had nothing to offer but her hard work? Sophia needed to know. She needed to understand if Lucas loved her for who she truly was, not for what she represented in the world of business and high society. And the best way to find out was to observe his family under disguise. The idea of pretending to be a maid had been hers, and Lucas, unsuspecting, believed it was a charming way to introduce someone special without the pressure of a formal visit. He told his mother that Sophia, or rather Sophia, was a friend who was looking for temporary work. Donna Marta Azevedo, while initially hesitant, eventually agreed, thinking an extra set of hands would be useful for the big birthday party she had planned. Sophia knew she was taking a huge risk, but the anticipation of meeting Lucas's family as a regular person, without the weight of her name and fortune, seemed worth the sacrifice. She felt a pang of nervousness as the bus pulled into the small town, hours away from anything that could be associated with her real world. As she got off, she was greeted by the hot, dry air typical of the countryside, and by Lucas, waiting for her with a wide, warm smile. He hugged her affectionately, completely unaware that the woman standing before him was about to face one of the greatest challenges of her life. "Welcome home, Sophia," Lucas said, taking the small suitcase from her hands. "My mom is going to love you. I'm sure of it." Sophia smiled, but her heart was racing. She knew that from that moment on, she would have to maintain the charade with all her strength. Her mind was filled with doubts and anxieties, but one thing was certain: she was about to discover the true nature of the Azevedo family, and perhaps even of Lucas himself. Little did she know that the next few days would bring revelations that would change her life forever. Lucas's car moved along the dirt road leading to his family's house. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange that reflected the simplicity and beauty of the surrounding landscape. For Sophia, this scene was so far removed from her reality that it almost felt like she was in another world. Lucas, always thoughtful, kept the conversation light, sharing stories of his childhood and the pranks he and his sister Carla used to pull when they were kids. But despite her interest in the stories, Sophia's mind was racing, trying to prepare herself for what was to come. When they finally arrived at the Azevedo house, Sophia took a deep breath before getting out of the car. The house was simple but welcoming, with a well-kept garden in front. As soon as she stepped out of the car, Sophia could smell homemade food coming from the kitchen, mixed with the scent of flowers in the garden. Lucas led her to the door, where they were greeted by Donna Marta, a woman with a stern appearance but a polite smile on her face. "So, you're Sophia," Donna Marta said, looking Sophia up and down. "Lucas told me you're looking for a job. I hope you don't mind getting your hands dirty, because we don't take it easy around here." The tone was friendly, but Sophia couldn't help sensing a hint of judgment in Donna Marta's voice. With a shy smile, Sophia replied, "Of course, Donna Marta. I'm here to help with whatever's needed." Donna Marta studied her for a few more seconds before nodding and stepping aside to let them in. The interior of the house was simple but tidy, with wooden furniture that appeared to have been carefully maintained over the years. The decor was filled with family photos, giving the place a warm and personal touch, something Sofia had always felt was lacking in her own home. At dinner that evening, Sofia met the rest of the family. Paulo Azevedo, Lucas's father, was a man of few words, but seemed genuinely kind. He greeted her with a smile and a firm handshake, without a hint of prejudice or disdain. Carla, on the other hand, was harder to read. With an indifferent expression, she introduced herself quickly and spent the rest of the meal casting suspicious glances at Sofia. It was clear that Carla was not comfortable with the presence of a maid at the dinner table. "So, Sofia," Carla began, her tone a mix of curiosity and disdain, "what did you do before coming here? It can't be easy finding work these days, huh?" Feeling the weight of the question, Sofia answered as calmly as she could. "I've worked in a few different places, helping out wherever I was needed, but I'm always willing to learn and do my best." Donna Marta, who was serving dessert, interrupted the conversation with a short laugh. "Well, you'll have plenty of chances to show what you know around here. With the party coming up, we'll need all the help we can get." Lucas, oblivious to the tension in the room, simply smiled, happy to have his family and the woman he loved together. But Sofia felt like she was constantly being evaluated, not just by Donna Marta, but especially by Carla. There was something in the way Carla looked at her that made her uneasy, as if Carla was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't yet make sense. After dinner, Donna Marta showed Sofia to the small room they had prepared for her. The walls were simple, with faded floral wallpaper, and the furniture was basic but functional. Sofia thanked her and got ready for the night, but sleep didn't come easily. The image of Carla watching her with that skeptical gaze stayed in her mind. Was she starting to suspect something? As she lay staring at the ceiling, Sofia wondered if she had made the right decision. She was in a completely different environment than what she was used to, surrounded by people who didn't truly know her. But at the same time, this was her chance to finally understand if Lucas's love was genuine. Determined to keep going, Sofia closed her eyes and tried to relax. The real test would begin the next day, and she needed to be ready for anything. The morning sun filtered through the curtains of the modest room, waking Sofia even before the alarm went off. She got up, feeling the strangeness of the environment around her, but determined to maintain her disguise. After getting ready as discreetly as possible, Sofia went down to the kitchen, where she found Donna Marta already up, busy preparing breakfast. "Good morning, Donna Marta," Sofia said, trying to sound confident, even though her heart was racing. "Can I help with anything?" Donna Marta looked up, assessing Sofia for a moment before responding. "You can start by making the coffee then. We'll need someone to help clean up after breakfast. The party is coming up, and there's a lot of work to be done." Sofia nodded, focusing on her tasks. The kitchen was a cozy space, with appliances and utensils chosen more for their usefulness than their appearance. As she made the coffee, Sofia noticed a picture frame on the wall holding an old family photo. It was an image of Lucas as a child, standing next to his parents and Carla. The innocent look and open smile on Lucas's face in that photo made Sofia's heart ache. He truly was the most genuine man she had ever known. As the family gathered for breakfast, Sofia once again felt Carla's scrutinizing gaze. The young woman watched her every move, as if waiting for a slip-up, something that would confirm her suspicions. Paulo's, as usual, was kind and polite, thanking Sofia for her help and making small comments about the weather and the preparations for the party. Lucas, on the other hand, seemed more relaxed than the night before, perhaps comforted by the idea that everything was going smoothly. He chatted enthusiastically about his plans for the weekend and the surprises he had in store for his mother's birthday. Sofia tried to keep up with the conversation, but she couldn't ignore Carla's inquisitive stare, which seemed to grow more intense by the minute. After breakfast, Sofia offered to help with the cleaning, and Donna Marta gratefully accepted. While she cleaned the living room, Sofia overheard snippets of conversation in the background. Carla was talking to her mother about the party, but there was a note of dissatisfaction in her voice. "Mum, Are you sure this Sophia is trustworthy? I don't know. There's something about her that doesn't add up. Donna Marta, ever pragmatic, replied firmly. Carla, she's just a temporary maid. If you're worried, you can supervise her during the preparations. Now stop imagining things and focus on the party. Those words, though simple, hit Sophia like a punch. Being reduced to a temporary maid was exactly what she had expected when she took on this disguise. But hearing it aloud, especially from Donna Marta, who until then had seemed to accept her presence, was a harsh reminder of the reality she had chosen to live. As she dusted the furniture and tidied the room, Sophia began to reflect on the possible consequences of her decision. What if Carla decided to dig deeper? What if they found out who she really was before she was ready to reveal the truth? Sophia knew she was walking on dangerous ground, and the tension only grew with each passing minute in the Azevedo household. The air around them seemed to grow thicker, laden with tension. Sophia tried to stay calm, but Carla's unwavering gaze seemed to pierce through every one of her defenses. The young woman didn't move, waiting for a response that could change the course of the entire story. I'm just trying to do my job, Carla, Sophia replied, attempting to sound convincing but unable to hide the insecurity in her voice. Carla narrowed her eyes, stepping a bit closer. Is that so? Because, honestly, there's something about you that doesn't add up. A simple maid doesn't have the kind of attitude you have. You act like someone holding back, as if you're afraid of being discovered. Panic began to rise in Sophia's chest. She couldn't reveal her true identity at that moment. It was too early. She needed to buy time, find a way to divert Carla's attention. Look, I'm just here to help. If you don't want me to continue, I can leave. But please, understand that I'm only trying to do my best. Carla continued to stare at her for a few more seconds before finally taking a step back, as if contemplating her next words. You can stay, she said, her tone less aggressive, but still suspicious. But I'll be keeping an eye on you. Anything suspicious, and I'll talk to my mother and Lucas, just so you know. Sophia nodded, trying to hide the relief she felt inside. The situation was still tense, but at least she had a bit more time before Carla could uncover the truth. When Carla finally left, returning inside the house, Sophia was left alone in the garden, taking deep breaths and trying to process what had just happened. With each passing moment, the decision to disguise herself as a maid seemed riskier, but she was determined to move forward. She couldn't give up now, not when she was so close to understanding the true nature of Lucas's family. In the following days, the atmosphere in the Azevedo household became more tense. Donna Marta continued to treat Sophia with a certain indifference, while Carla seemed to always be nearby, watching every move, every word. Paolo, on the other hand, remained friendly and welcoming, oblivious to the suspicions lingering over his home. And Lucas, in the innocence of his love for Sophia, was the only one who didn't notice the sparks of tension in the air. With Donna Marta's birthday party approaching, preparations intensified. Sophia found herself increasingly involved in the tasks, from organizing dishes to decorating the house. During these moments, she could observe the family dynamics more closely, especially between Lucas and his mother. It was clear that Donna Marta took great pride in her son, but there was a rigidity in her demeanor that contrasted with the evident affection Lucas showed her. On the eve of the party, while everyone was busy with the final preparations, Sophia found a moment of solitude in the small kitchen, where she was washing the dinner dishes. Her mind was racing, thinking about how she would handle the presence of more guests the next day, and how she would maintain her disguise in front of people who might ask uncomfortable questions. It was during this moment of reflection that Lucas entered the kitchen, carrying a smile that made her heart race. He approached silently and, without saying anything, placed his hands on Sophia's, who was still holding a plate. "So you're doing an amazing job, Sophia," he said, his tone gentle enough to make her forget, for a moment, all her fears. "My mother has been praising your help a lot. I think she's never had someone as dedicated as you here." Sophia smiled, but the smile was bittersweet. Lucas's words, so well-intentioned, were a double-edged sword. They confirmed that her disguise was working, but also highlighted the distance she needed to maintain for him to continue believing in the ruse. "Thank you, Lucas. I just want to help in the best way I can." Lucas looked at her for a moment, as if trying to understand something beyond her words. "You know I trust you, right? And that no matter what happens, I'm by your side." Sophia nearly let out a sigh of relief. Lucas's trust was a balm for her worries, but also a source of guilt. He didn't know the truth, and the more time passed, the more she feared the moment she would have to reveal it. But in that instant, with Lucas's hands on hers and the implicit promise in his words, Sophia decided she would do everything in her power to protect that love, even if it meant keeping the secret a little longer. The next morning, the day of the party, the Azevedo household was in organized chaos. Guests began arriving early, and Sophia, in her role as a maid, was busier than ever, running back and forth to ensure everything was perfect. However, as she tried to keep control of the situation, she noticed Carla seemed more distant, almost as if she was plotting something. This feeling of discomfort only grew as the day progressed, and Sophia began to wonder if something more serious was about to happen. And then, as the day was about to end, with the party in full swing, an unexpected guest entered through the door. Someone Sophia never imagined she would see in that place. The party atmosphere was lively, with laughter and conversations spreading throughout the house. Guests mingled in the living room, while Donna Marta proudly showcased her family and the impeccable organization of her home. Lucas was busy chatting with some childhood friends, and Paolo entertained the neighbors with old stories. Sophia, trying to stay discreet, continued with her tasks, but her mind was on high alert. Carla, who had spent the entire day with a calculating expression, seemed to be in constant motion, interacting with the guests and occasionally casting furtive glances at Sophia. That restlessness didn't go unnoticed, and Sophia couldn't help but feel that something was about to happen. And then, the front door opened and a familiar figure crossed the threshold. The murmur of the guests paused for a moment as a tall, elegant woman entered, wearing an expensive dress and exuding an undeniable aura of authority. Sophia froze upon seeing the woman. It was Beatrice, her personal assistant and closest confidant. Shock hit her like a punch to the stomach. What was Beatrice doing there? Sophia quickly averted her gaze, trying to hide in plain sight, but it was too late. Beatrice had already seen her, and with a mix of surprise and concern, approached her directly. "Sophia, what's going on here?" Beatrice asked in a low voice, but laden with tension. Carla's eyes sparkled with triumph. It was clear she had orchestrated this. Probably suspicious of Sophia's behavior, Carla had done some research, perhaps even followed a lead that directly pointed to Sophia's real identity, and somehow she had managed to contact Beatrice, who was now there, inadvertently about to expose the whole truth. Lucas, who was on the other side of the room, noticed the commotion and approached. "What's happening?" he asked, looking from Sophia to Beatrice, confused. "Who is this woman?" Sophia felt panic rise within her, but she knew there was no way to escape anymore. She was cornered, and all she could do was try to control the damage. But before she could say anything, Carla intervened, her voice laden with bitter satisfaction. "So, Lucas, I think it's time you know who your dear Sophia really is," Carla said, pointing to Sophia with a theatrical gesture. "She's not just a maid, she's Sophia Marquez, billionaire heiress of Marquez Industries. All of this," Carla gestured around the house and the party, "was all a big ruse." The shock was immediate. The guests, who had been in a relaxed environment until then, were now tense, murmuring among themselves as they cast surprised and confused looks at Sophia. Donna Marta and Paolo, who were nearby, fell silent, unsure of how to react. But the worst was yet to come. Lucas, the man Sophia loved, now looked at her with an expression of total disbelief and hurt. "Sophia, is this true?" Lucas asked, the pain evident in his voice. Sophia felt tears starting to form, but she knew she had to face the consequences of her choices. "Lucas, please, let me explain," she began, but her voice faltered. How could she explain that the whole charade was made out of love, but now seemed like a huge mistake? Beatrice, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried to intervene. "Mr. Azevedo, I can assure you Sophia had no ill intentions. She only wanted to..." I just wanted to know if you would treat me the same way if you knew who I really am, Sophia interrupted, finally finding the strength to speak. I fell in love with you, Lucas, but I needed to know. I needed to be sure you loved me for who I am and not for my money. The ensuing silence was almost unbearable. Lucas looked at her, his expression hardening as Sophia's words sank in. So, all this time, you were testing my family, testing me. It wasn't a test, it was... Sophia tried to find the right words, but guilt and shame prevented her from explaining properly. It was a fear of being loved for the wrong reasons. Carla, still savoring the moment, added venom to the situation. Do you think our family isn't good enough for you, Sophia? Do you think you can play with people, pretending to be something you're not, just for fun? No, it's not like that, Sophia protested, but the hostility in the air was growing. The guests, now with a morbid curiosity, watched the scene like spectators in a family drama that had spiraled out of control. Donna Marta, who had been silent until now, took a step forward, looking directly at Sophia. Here, we value honesty above all else, Sophia, or rather, Sophia. I can understand your fears, but actions have consequences. You betrayed our family's trust. Those words were the final blow. Sophia knew the situation was out of control, and no matter what she said, the hurt and distrust had already poisoned the atmosphere. Lucas shook his head, pain and disappointment etched on his face. I need time to think, he said, turning and leaving the room, leaving Sophia there, alone and devastated. Sophia looked around, seeing the faces of everyone she had tried to impress and win over in a sincere manner over the past few days, but who now saw her as an intruder, a liar. Beatrice, always loyal, was by her side. But even she seemed at a loss for words. With one last look at the house that, for a brief moment, had almost become part of her life, Sophia turned and left. The sound of the door closing behind her sounded like a full stop in a story that, to her, had been a dream turning into a nightmare. But this wasn't the last page. Sophia knew she still had to fight for what she believed in. But how, when everything seemed lost? Sophia walked slowly down the dirt road, feeling the weight of each step. Night was falling over the small town, and the cool air that had once been comforting now felt cold and hostile. Her thoughts were in disarray, and the sound of her own footsteps was the only thing filling the overwhelming silence around her. She didn't know where she was going, but the need to distance herself from the Azevedo household was stronger than anything she had ever felt. As she walked, Lucas's words echoed in her mind. I need time to think. She perfectly understood the confusion and pain he was feeling. After all, she had chosen the hardest path, the path of lies, to protect what she believed was most precious. But now that same path was leading her to a loneliness that felt unbearable. Beatrice, always faithful, soon caught up with her. Sophia, you can't stay like this, she said, her voice full of concern. You did what you thought was right, but now you need to face the consequences with your head held high. I know, Beatrice, Sophia replied, her voice trembling. But I've lost Lucas's trust, his family's trust, and maybe even my own. How can I fix this? Beatrice paused for a moment, thinking of the right words. Fixing it. I don't know if it's possible, Sophia. But you can start by being honest, with yourself and with others. If Lucas really loves you, he will understand your intentions even if he's hurt now. Sophia knew Beatrice was right, but the pain was still too great for her to see a clear solution. She continued walking in silence until she spotted a small hill ahead, from which she could see the town and the distant lights of the scattered houses in the area. She sat down on the grass, letting the cold night wind dry the tears that stubbornly wanted to fall. As she sat there, reflecting on everything that had happened, she heard approaching footsteps. She turned and saw Lucas. Her heart raced, but she remained silent, waiting for him to take the initiative. Lucas stopped a few meters away from her, taking a deep breath before speaking. Sophia, I didn't come here to argue or ask for explanations. I just, needed to see you. I needed to understand why you did this. Sophia looked at him, feeling a mix of hope and fear. Lucas, I know what I did was wrong. I let myself be driven by the fear of being rejected for who I am, and in trying to protect myself, I ended up betraying everyone's trust. But what I felt for you, what I still feel, is real. I just wanted to be sure that you loved me for who I am, and not for my money. Lucas approached, sitting down beside her. He looked out at the horizon, avoiding Sophia's gaze for a moment, before finally finding the courage to speak. I loved you from the beginning, Sophia, and I still love you. But that lie, it hurt me. I understand that you have your fears, but did you really need to test me like that? Test my family? Sophia lowered her head, feeling the shame rise again. I know I was wrong, Lucas, and I deeply regret it. But I also learned something from this. I learned that true love doesn't need tests, and that trust is the foundation of any relationship. If I could go back, I would do everything differently. Lucas sighed, shaking his head slowly. I know you didn't have bad intentions, but it was hard to see my family hurt, to see my mother. Well, she's always been so proud of your honesty. Seeing how she reacted to everything, it broke me, Sophia. And I'm so sorry for that, Sophia replied, her voice choked. I never wanted to hurt anyone, especially you. They remained silent for a while, just listening to the wind rustling through the surrounding trees. Finally, Lucas broke the silence. I need time to process all this, to understand what it means for us. But, Sophia, I also know that what I feel for you doesn't disappear overnight. I'll need to talk to my family, understand how they feel. Sophia nodded, accepting what he said, even though it was painful. I understand, Lucas, and I'll wait as long as it takes. I just want you to know that no matter what happens, I love you. Lucas looked into her eyes, and for the first time since the truth came out, Sophia saw a glimpse of understanding and empathy. I love you too, Sophia, but we're going to need to work on this, and it's going to take time. With one last look of tenderness, Lucas stood up. Let's go home. I think we have a lot to discuss with my family. Sophia stood up as well, still feeling the weight of uncertainty on her shoulders, but with a small spark of hope in her heart. The way back seemed shorter now, with Lucas by her side, even if there was still an emotional distance between them. When they arrived back at the Azevedo household, the tension was palpable. Donna Marta, Paolo, and Carla were in the living room, waiting. The silence between them was thick, and Sophia knew the words that would follow would be decisive for the future. Donna Marta was the first to speak. Sophia, I have always valued truth, and it was hard to know that you deceived us. But Lucas explained your reasons, and even though I'm still hurt, I know that your intentions behind your actions weren't malicious. However, we will need time to rebuild the trust that was broken. Paolo, always more understanding, stepped forward. I believe in second chances, Sophia. Everyone makes mistakes, and what's important is learning from them. If Lucas is willing to move forward, then I think we all should try. Carla, though still visibly suspicious, simply crossed her arms and said in a low voice, I just hope all of this is worth it. For all of us. Sophia knew the road ahead would be difficult, but with Lucas and his family willing to try, she felt there was still a chance for redemption. What had started as an attempt to protect her heart had turned into a painful lesson about trust, love, and the complexities of relationships. As the night continued, Sophia allowed herself to believe that, despite the challenges, she and Lucas could find a way to rebuild what was broken. And in some way, that made her feel that, in the end, it would all be worth it. If you enjoyed this story, consider subscribing to our channel and supporting us through the Thanks button. Until next time.